On May 1st, 2008, in the gated upscale community of Sugarloaf Springs in Gwinnett County, Georgia, Hal Wenal returned home to find something no husband should ever have to see. His wife, Kay Wenal, lay lifeless in the kitchen, surrounded by a pool of blood. Kay was 60 years old, a former model, well-known and well-liked. But that morning, something brutal had happened behind the walls of their home. Investigators said she had been punched in the face, chased through the kitchen, and her throat slashed twice with a blade so sharp it was compared to a scalpel. There was blood everywhere, but nothing else. No signs of a break-in. No fingerprints. No footprints. No foreign hairs or fibers. Every drop of blood at the scene belonged to Kay. Whoever had done this had left no trace. Police looked first at Hal. The husband is always the first question mark in a case like this. But there was no evidence of a motive, no history of violence, no sign of an affair, nothing to suggest a fracture in their marriage. After 3 weeks of intense investigation, Hal was cleared. He had an airtight alibi. And more than that, he was desperate to find the truth. He hired private investigators and offered a $250,000 reward for any information that could lead to an arrest. But if it wasn't Hal, then who was the killer? Kay wasn't even supposed to be home that day. She had called in sick to work, a last-minute decision. Investigators believe her killer was someone she knew, someone who knew her schedule, her habits, and who could walk up to the front door without raising suspicion. As investigators searched for leads, a witness came forward. A woman in the neighborhood remembered seeing a man, alone, on foot, with no car in sight. He was holding a real estate flyer, claiming to be looking for a home listed for sale nearby. Later that same day, that man was seen again, this time walking toward the Wenal residence. The timing matched the estimated window of Kay's murder. A composite sketch was drawn from the witness's description. The face in the sketch triggered a chilling memory. There was a striking resemblance to a man seen years earlier in photographs with Kay during a trip to Las Vegas. Who he was or what connection he had to her remains unknown to this day. Investigators believe Kay willingly opened the front door to her killer, someone she likely recognized. He struck her immediately, a calculated blow. Evidence at the scene, including fragments of latex gloves found inside the house and on the back deck, suggested the killer was right-handed and prepared. Kay ran. She tried to make it to the kitchen, maybe to the phone, maybe to the back door, but she didn't make it far. Her attacker caught up with her, slashed her throat once. Then again with what detectives would later call an insurance cut. A second deliberate strike to ensure she wouldn't survive the assault. Then, just as quickly as he arrived, he disappeared. Police believe he escaped through the wooded area behind the Wenal home. A year would pass with no progress in solving the case, until something arrived in the mail that would take the mystery in a darker, stranger direction. Months after Kay's murder, a letter arrived at the Norcross office of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. It was anonymous, crafted from cutout magazine letters, the kind you'd expect to see in a ransom note from a movie. The message claimed that Kay was deeply unhappy in her marriage, that she had told someone, presumably the letter's author, that she wanted to leave her husband. It said that she told the writer that they could be together, but in the end, she chose to stay with Hal. The letter was quickly handed over to police. It was examined at the crime lab, but there were no fingerprints, no DNA, no forensics at all, just words, carefully pieced together to tell a story no one could verify. Some investigators believed the letter was real, that it came from a spurned lover, enraged by rejection. Others weren't convinced. Former FBI profiler Mary Ellen O'Toole described the note as scripted, too staged to be authentic. This is someone pretending to be the killer, a boogeyman, designed to send investigators in the wrong direction. 2 years after Kay's murder, Hal Wenal died of a heart attack. He was 74. His estate shut down the private investigation, and the reward was withdrawn. He was buried beside the woman he had spent his remaining years fighting to get justice for. Justice that, unfortunately, never came. The murder of Kay Wenal remains unsolved. If you have any information, contact the Gwinnett County Criminal Investigation Division at 770-513-5390 or Crime Stoppers Atlanta at 404-577-8477. Nairn, Scotland, is a quiet seaside town known more for its postcard views than violent crime. But on the evening of November 28, 2004, something happened here that shattered the calm community. At around 7 p.m., the doorbell rang at the Wilson home on Crescent Road. Veronica Wilson opened the door to find a man she didn't recognize, wearing a dark blue jacket, jeans, and a baseball cap. He calmly asked for her husband by name. Alistair Wilson, a 30-year-old banker and father of two, came to the door. The man handed him a small blue envelope with a single word written on the front: Paul. The envelope was empty. Confused, Alistair returned to the living room to show the envelope to his wife. Then he turned around and went back to the door. Moments later, 3 gunshots. Veronica rushed to the entrance to find her husband lying on the doorstep, bleeding. Alistair Wilson was dead. What followed was one of the largest murder inquiries Scotland had ever seen. Hundreds of interviews, door-to-door investigations. Yet the case stalled almost immediately. No suspect, no clear motive, and that strange blue envelope never explained. Nearly 2 decades later, the mystery still grips the country. The murder of Alistair Wilson isn't just unsolved, it's unexplainable. In October 2020, a new voice entered the public search for answers: Alistair's son, Andrew, who had been just a child when his father was killed. Now grown, he made a direct appeal for information, urging anyone with knowledge to come forward. Around the same time, police disclosed a detail they had long kept quiet. The weapon used in the killing was a rare 1930s-era Wenal pocket pistol, .25 caliber, an old, obscure firearm not commonly found in the UK. Investigators hoped someone, somewhere, might recognize it, or remember who had access to one. Then, in April 2022, a potential motive finally surfaced. Police revealed that in the weeks before his death, Alistair had been involved in a heated dispute over a hotel decking area being built just across the street. He had opposed the construction, lodging formal complaints and trying to halt the project. Detectives now believe this dispute could be at the center of the case. The hotel owner was ruled out as a suspect, but investigators suggested the killer, or killers, might have been connected to the project. Maybe builders or contractors. In 2023, Police Scotland revealed that they now believe 2 people were involved in the shooting. One of them, they said, was a local man with a criminal history, a former inmate with drug convictions. They stopped short of naming him, but made it clear they were close. Still, as of May 2025, the case remains unsolved. Alistair Wilson's murder wasn't random. It wasn't impulsive. It was targeted, calculated, and as of now, still unanswered. By the 1930s, Alcatraz was already infamous. A fortress built on a rocky island in the frigid waters of San Francisco Bay, it was a prison designed to break men's hopes. In 1934, it was redesigned to be even tougher. Reinforced iron bars, armed guard towers, and relentless routines that included 12 inmate checks every single day. Escape wasn't just unlikely. It was believed to be impossible. From its reopening in 1934 to its closure in 1963, 36 men tried to escape. 14 separate attempts. Most were captured. Some drowned. None were confirmed to have made it to land. Until 3 inmates came up with a plan that would make history. Frank Morris arrived at Alcatraz in January 1960. Smart, calculating, and a known escape artist, he'd already broken out of several facilities. Later that year, another familiar face arrived: John Anglin. His brother Clarence followed in early 1961. The 3 had met years earlier in another prison. Now they were neighbors, assigned to adjacent cells. And in the shadows of America's most secure prison, they began to plot. On the morning of June 12, 1962, guards conducted the routine bed check. But this time, something was wrong. 3 beds, 3 bodies, but all 3 were decoys. Frank Morris, John Anglin, Clarence Anglin, gone. In each of their beds, guards found carefully crafted dummy heads, made from plaster, painted to match skin tone, and topped with real human hair. In the dim light of early morning, they were convincing enough to fool even seasoned guards. By the time anyone realized, the men were long gone. Alcatraz went into full lockdown. The prison was searched from top to bottom. Boats, helicopters, and floodlights scoured the bay. But there was no sign of Morris or the Anglin brothers. Whether they made it to land or drowned in the attempt remains one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries. Some believe the strong currents and frigid temperatures would have made survival impossible. Others point to strange clues suggesting the escape might have succeeded. In 2013, the San Francisco Police Department received a letter. It was addressed from someone claiming to be John Anglin. "My name is John Anglin. I escaped from Alcatraz in June 1962 with my brother Clarence and Frank Morris. I'm 83 years old and in bad shape. I have cancer. Yes, we all made it that night. But barely. The letter went on to make an offer. Announce on television that he would only serve a year in prison and receive medical care, and he would reveal his location. The letter ended with, "This is no joke." But the letter led nowhere. No follow-up, no arrests. Today, the fate of the three escapees remains unknown. It's a question that still haunts the legend of Alcatraz. December 23, 1974. Fort Worth, Texas, just 2 days before Christmas. 17-year-old Mary Rachel Trlica, 14-year-old Renee Wilson, and 9-year-old Julie Mosley set out for an afternoon of Christmas shopping. They were headed for the Seminary South Shopping Center, a retail center crowded with last-minute shoppers. They were never seen again. The girls made a few stops that morning, including a surplus store where they picked up layaway gifts. Witnesses would later place them inside the mall. But when 6 p.m. rolled around and they hadn't returned, their worried families began to search. At the mall's upper-level parking lot near Sears, they found Rachel's Oldsmobile. Inside, shopping bags, untouched. No signs of a struggle, no sign of the girls. Their families waited through the night, scanning the crowds, hoping for movement, hoping for anything. But the girls never came back. Police initially treated the case as a runaway scenario. 3 girls, they said, who had chosen to disappear for a little while. But then came the letter. It arrived the next day, postmarked from Fort Worth, addressed to Tommy Trlica, Mary Rachel's husband. Something wasn't right. The envelope was addressed in pencil. In the upper left corner, the name Rachel was scribbled as a return address. The L had been written as a lowercase e, then clumsily corrected. It was a small mistake, but it was telling. And then there was the postmark. Faint. Incomplete. The city name was missing. All that remained was a smeared zip code, 76083, a number that didn't exist. Was it meant to be 76083 from Eliasville, or 76088 from Weatherford? The final digit was warped, possibly reversed. But inside, the letter was written in ink, on a piece of paper noticeably larger than the envelope itself. The salutation, Thomas A. Trlica, felt stiff and impersonal. Mary Rachel would have used Tommy. The letter read, "I know I'm going to catch it, but we had to get away. We're going to Houston. See you in about a week. The car is in Sears' upper lot. Love, Rachel." The handwriting looked shaky. The phrasing didn't sound like Rachel, and those closest to her, family, friends, even handwriting experts, agreed. It didn't seem like something she would write. If she didn't write it, then who did, and why? The letter was handed over to authorities. Even the FBI weighed in. But in the end, their conclusions were inconclusive. For decades, the search continued. Investigators traced rural roads across Texas. Families walked through creek beds, combed remote woods, and knocked on doors, hoping for any scrap of information. Again and again, they came up empty. Tips flooded in over the years, each one a flicker of hope, each one extinguished just as quickly. No suspects, no arrests, no sign of the girls. Now, more than half a century later, the trail is cold. And the question that haunted Fort Worth in 1974 is still unanswered. Where are Mary Rachel, Renee, and Julie? On the evening of December 12, 1991, Gregory McRobert was last seen riding his bicycle along the quiet rural stretch of South Meridian Road, near his home in the isolated reaches of Lee Township, Midland County, Michigan. Earlier that day, McRobert had run into car trouble. His vehicle had broken down, forcing him to leave it at the Silver Creek Inn, a roadside stop just a few miles away. That night, he set out on his bike, planning to return to the inn and fix the car himself. It should have been a short, uneventful ride, but Gregory never made it. By December 16th, 4 days later, he was officially reported missing. Friends and family clung to hope, waiting for any sign that he might return. But as the weeks passed, that hope began to fade. Then, on January 4th, 1992, a grim discovery was made. Gregory's body was found in a lonely, water-filled ditch on the west side of South Meridian Road. Partially submerged in icy water, his life had not ended peacefully, but in violence. Investigators determined he had been struck and killed in a hit-and-run accident, left alone in the cold night. The investigation unearthed troubling clues. The vehicle that struck Gregory McRoberts was believed to be a light blue four-door Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme, or possibly a Brougham model, manufactured between 1982 and 1987. Evidence from the scene suggested it had suffered heavy damage to the front passenger side. There would probably be faint traces of tan or red paint on the car, likely transferred from Greg's bicycle. The case would go cold until nearly 14 years later. On March 25, 2005, Greg's parents received an anonymous, typewritten 2-page letter. The unknown author claimed responsibility for the crash, confessing to being the one behind the wheel that cold December night in 1991. The letter revealed details that only the true driver could have known, specifics about the scene, the impact, and what followed. In a bold and rare move, the Midland County Sheriff's Office released the contents of the letter to the public. Their hope was that somewhere, someone might recognize a detail. Investigators believe someone out there knows more. Maybe a friend who noticed a damaged car, or a confidant who heard a quiet confession. Today, the McRoberts family continues to live with the ache of unanswered questions. They need closure. They deserve the truth. If you know anything at all, it might be the piece that completes this puzzle. Please contact the Midland County Sheriff's Office tip line at 989-839-4609. Because after all these years, someone still knows what happened on South Meridian Road in Midland County, Michigan, and it's time to speak up.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Fireside Unsolved. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Until next time, take it easy and be easy, you filthy bastards.